Hello everyone, welcome back to the video lecture series on the subject English for Skill Enhancement. I'm Arif Ahammed. I teach English at the Department of SNH, MLR Institute of Technology. So today's topic is describing an event. How to describe an event. Right? This is a small topic but very useful one. Now let's see what is the overview of today's lecture. How to describe an event. So obviously we'll be talking about how to describe an event. Please remember, I'm not going to give any sample description of an event because that can vary. I would just tell the basic facts that you should take care while describing an event. Okay, and then various elements of an event. So what are the things that you need to include in the description? How you can enhance the description of an event. So these are the two aspects or two, segments of today's lecture. Now see the first thing, introduction of the event. So what do you do? Introduction of the event. First thing you need to do is you need to give introduction to the event. So what are the points that comes under introduction? So name of the event. So which event is being organized, you have to tell first. You have to introduce the name of the event. You have to tell the name of the event to the audience or to your reader. And then venue of the event, where it is being organized, at which place it was organized, date and time. So at which date and time it was organized, means when it was organized. And then describe the organizers. Who is organizing the event? It can be a NGO, it can be a club of your college, it can be your college management. So you need to give the details of the organizers also. And then purpose of the event. Now this is very important. These are all fact, but here you need to apply your own understanding of the event. So why, for what purpose? Sometimes the organizer might not specify the purpose explicitly. You have to understand and you have to include it in your description. Purpose. So this is very important. Please remember why it is being organized. So it can be any event, but there must be a purpose behind organizing the event, right? So you have to specify that. You have to include that aspect in your description. So please remember, this is the first segment of describing an event. So whenever you start describing an event, these are the things that you should include first. Name, venue, date of time, describe the organizers, who are the organizers, and then purpose. Fine. You can maintain the same sequence also. Name, venue, date, describing, purpose. Also now, please remember before, like when you introduce the name of the event, do not just simply say the name of the event was or the title of the event was. You use a different kind of sentence. So last week, I have attended the most exciting event at MLRIT till now, right? So these kind of description you have to give. And then the name of the event was. So instead of using a simple sentence, directly telling the name of the event, you are giving a brief overview. So these entire things will work also as a small overview of the event. Now let's see the next segment. What are the other things that you need to include in your description? Here, atmosphere. Now this is very important because any description, if you're dealing with a description of an event or description of an event or place, the sensory description is very important. No, it's not about factual details, including factual details. Sensual description, sensory description also is very important. So general atmosphere, when we're talking about general atmosphere in that particular segment, you can use sensory description. So for that, you need to enhance your vocabulary. You need to have certain adjectives at your arsenal. If you don't have many adjectives, your description might be limited, might not be that effective. So you can see here example: vibrant, noisy, exciting, colorful, lively. All these are adjectives. So if you don't know all these words, it would be very difficult for you to describe the general atmosphere of the event, right? And the moment you will use all these things, what will happen? They will appeal to the senses. You can see if you're talking about noisy, if the atmosphere was noisy, if you simply say, let's say I'm using a very simple sentence, the atmosphere on the day was very noisy, right? Because of chattering of the students, sound systems, and all those things. So here, noisy, the moment you say noisy, it appeals to a sense of what? Hearing, right? Similarly, when I say the campus, was decorated in a very colorful manner, or the campus looked very colorful because of the colorful dresses that students wore on that particular day. So here, the moment I say colorful, it is appealing to my sense. What sense? Visual sense, right? So the sensory description, they are very important because they create a vivid mental image. So this is very important, you have to remember. Whenever you are describing an event, it's not a dry description or writing few words on a paper. You have to create the image in front of the reader. The moment the reader will read your description, they will not simply go through the words or sentences on a paper. They will also create a picture in their mind about that event, about the event day. So that's why the sensory description is very important. If you don't include them, that vivid mental picture won't be created. Hence, the description will not be that effective. So please remember that. So first thing is about general introduction about the event. Then atmosphere. In this section, you can include sensory description, right? Now, next part, event details. So now in this segment, you can talk about the details of the event. So describe all the segments in chronological order. So let's say if a one day event like your annual day or ecstasy day, or let's say any traditional day, there will be multiple segments. There might be multiple segments, right? From the morning to evening. So you can talk about all the segments, in 2-3 sentences, and in chronological order, like whatever happened in the same order, you can describe them. Here also you can use sensory details. Now let's say if you are talking about a dance performance, the atmosphere was electrifying, you can see. So the moment you say electrifying, it will appeal to our senses. In that way, in this portion also you can use sensory details. So this is very important. Now other details, these are all factual details. What you can include: was it an open event or restricted event? Was it open for everyone or only for students, participants and stakeholders? Like the same thing, who participated in the event, who are the main stakeholders at the event, and then chief guests. Sometimes chief guests might be invited. Like if you remember, for your annual day or your traditional day, movie star came at your campus, right? So they were the chief guests. So you can talk about those things also. So here, event details. These details are all related to the event. Now, next segment, this is the third part or last part. Here, what you can do, this is also very important, and this makes your description very unique. Your personal opinion of the event. So what is your perception about the event? You must have felt something after attending the event. You need to include that also in the description. Now, normally, if you recollect or if you just reflect, you will understand that we don't include these things in our description. And that's why our description always remains ineffective or not so effective. So please remember, this is very important. Do not forget to talk about your personal perception, your personal opinion, your reflection about the event. So how do you do that? What are the things that you can talk about while talking about your personal opinion? Why was the event useful? Why do you think the event was very useful? Now, say clearly, give few reasons or examples. Then, was the event a success? What do you think? What is your perception? Was it a very successful event or was it a very boring event? People were not participating wholeheartedly. So these things you can tell. What did you learn from the day? So there are many events, especially academic events for, let's say, hackathon, 1 day hackathon or something like that, a workshop, 2 days workshop or 1 day workshop. In those kind of events, what happened? You learn something. So you can talk about that also. What exactly did you learn? Because this can vary from person to person, and that's why your description will become unique, because you'll be talking about your personal point of view, your personal opinion. What exactly did you learn from the event? That might vary from others, and that's where your description becomes unique. Include a quote. Now this is also very important. Include a quote from the speaker, organizer, or delegate. You can also collect quote from the participant also. So let's say traditional day. So you can just simply talk with the students and ask that particular student, like, what is his or her opinion about the event? What does he or she think about the event? You can include that particular statement as quotation, as it is, right? You can also collect the quotation from the organizers or management or delegate or chief guest, anyone. So this quotation also is important because it adds authenticity to your description. People will understand that whatever you said till now are not manipulated things. You are not simply creating the description in your mind. You have actually experienced all those things in the event. Because quotation means you are exactly quoting the same person. You are not saying your opinion. So that's why this quotation also is very important. So, to three basic segments in describing an event. First is introduction, right? Introduction, there are certain details in the introduction thing. You can include like name of the event, place, date and time, organizers, chief guest, all those things. And then second thing is general atmosphere. You can talk about general atmosphere. What was the atmosphere on that particular day? Please remember, you are not supposed to restrict yourself only in one sentences. You can use 2, 3, 4 sentences also to talk about the atmosphere. Okay, and here one thing you have to remember, that you have to include sensory details here in this particular part. The third next segment was what? You can talk about event details. So what are the details about the event? Whether the event was restricted or open, and then other things like if you can see, if you go back, was it open or restricted? Who were the participants? And then different segments of the event. All those things you can include. And then the last part is conclusion. In conclusion part, what do? You basically add your reflection about the event, and also you add quote from the participant or organizers or management or delegate, anyone, chief guest, right? So I hope it is clear. So what is the takeaway point from today's lecture? Inclusion of all necessary and relevant details. This is very important. We need to include all these details. Now you can add always extra points, extra things, extra details, but these are the basic things that you need to include. You cannot avoid at any cost. Okay. So this is important thing. Organizing all these relevant details in appropriate sequence. So maintaining the sequence also is very important. Okay, and then incorporating sensory details. Now this is very important. Incorporating sensory details. How do you do that? While describing the general atmosphere, while describing the different segment of the event, you can add sensory details. Now, maybe in certain cases you might not be able to do. It's absolutely fine. But wherever possible, please try to include sensory details. So last thing, but not the least thing, the most important thing, in fact, creating a vivid mental picture. Whenever you start describing an event, please remember that you are not supposed to just supply some factual details. What you have to do, your purpose, your aim should be to create a mental image through your description. Fine. I hope it is clear. We'll again meet in the next lecture on a different topic. Thank you, everyone.